Everyone knows a true king must wear a crown. In the jungles of Southeast Asia, the kingly crown isn't a mane, but a hood. The King Cobra is an infamous monarch that uses his regal headwear to intimidate foreign powers that threaten his domain. But those that don't respect the crown always respect the bite. And that's what it takes to maintain the throne in life, death, and taxonomy. Welcome to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information. I'm Joe.
And I'm Carlos, but am I welcome back?
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And today we're talking about, and thank you, Cassie, for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube. I've got the yips.
And thank you to Johanna for the creation of this week's artwork. To check that out, you can follow us at, or visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com. And a very special thank you to our patrons. Thank you to Tristan Taylor, Jesse Raspolich, Carol Raspolich, and Richard Kaspar. Thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on.
And today we're talking about the cold-blooded king of the jungle.
But more on that later. Yes.
But more on that later. I didn't even write that down. I do have the yips.
Do you usually write down, but more on that later?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because this is essentially this can serve as a transcript, almost, when I put it on the website.
Oh, interesting. I always wondered why the lion was considered the king of the jungle, when nothing about it really lends itself to living in a jungle.
I don't know.
It had a much wider range than it does now, but it's not adapted to living in the jungle. So it doesn't really make much sense. I would sooner call the cobra the king of the jungle. Maybe not the African jungle, but
really the tiger is the king of the jungle because it's a big cat. It's a big predator that actually lives in the jungle.
Yeah, I guess if you're exploring Africa, then you call the king of the jungle the leopard. Or something like that. A crocodile? I'd call that the king of the jungle.
No.
Not the lion. That's the king of the savannah.
Definitely.
Or the Serengeti. But yeah, we're talking about the king...
The Sultan of the Serengeti.
Oh man, you just took a little bit of the gas out of one of my nicknames. The King Cobra, it's also called the Hamadryad, which just sounds like some sort of like ancient Greek entity. It's like, oh no, the prophecy, it's being fulfilled. Now we must go and visit the Hamadryad. I thought I'd never have to go back there. It's been 1,000 years. Anyway, we're going to call the King Cobra here the hooded hypnotist, the venomous vizier, and the Sultan of Sting.
Oh, wow. We were both thinking of sultans.
Yeah, but I was thinking
of
Babe
Do you think
Ruth.
Every time you think of like a fun amount, like a bunch of nicknames leading up to introducing something, do you think about the Sandlot? Because I always think about the Sandlot. Talking about
I was definitely thinking about the Sandlot when I came up with the Sultan of Sting.
Yeah.
Bibby mentioned something about sultans, and I was like, okay, I got to work sultan in there. And I was like, oh, no. But, he doesn't really sting you.
The Colossal of Clout.
The Cobra Colossal of Clout. But, yeah. That's do you want to hear what science has to say about it?
Sure.
All right. The King Cobra is in a kingdom that it apparently rules because it is the king. It is Elvis. It is the kingdom that you know, love, and are in. That kingdom is Animalia, and I would not call this a just king. The phylum is Chordata. I guess the king of Kingdom Animalia would be God, but so there is a just king over that kingdom. The phylum is Chordata. The class is a Reptilia. The order is Squamata. Squamata. The suborder is Serpentes. Worst house in Harry Potter. The family is Elapidae. The subfamily is Elapinae. Oh. If I had twins, I'd call them Elapidae and Elapinae, and no one would ever get it right. The genus is Ophiophagus. And the species is Hannah. So if I ever saw a cobra in my house, I'd be like, kill Hannah. But yes, Ophiophagus, Hannah is the binomial nomenclature. And since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, Critter Groups, part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question, and that question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal, or what is the term of entry, or what is the collective noun? We do have a collective noun for cobras, not just snakes, cobras in particular. So if you saw a group of cobras, if you were unfortunate enough to see a group of cobras and it wasn't behind the safety glass of a zoo, if you were dangling over it in a pit like Indiana Jones, would you say that's A, a quiver of cobras, B, a sack of cobras, C, a hood of cobras, or D, a pit of cobras? Quiver, sack, hood, or pit?
Sack. Final answer.
That is incorrect.
Is it hood?
That is also incorrect.
Good.
It is quiver.
Okay, that might have been my third choice.
It is not related to the animal whatsoever.
That always makes me feel better when I was nowhere near guessing that answer.
That's a quiver of cobras, because you're going to be quivering if you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Yes. Yeah, sure.
That makes sense.
Do you want to hear about what this guy looks like?
Sure.
King cobras are pretty big snakes. Very big snakes, in fact. They are the largest venomous snake in the world. They have drab green scales with cream-colored stripes. As juveniles, their scales are black and yellow, so they have much more striking colors when they're young, and they turn to more camouflagey colors when they're older. They have rounded noses and perpetually angry eyes, which have round pupils. So most cartoon cobras are lies, which because they always have those slits for eyes, but that's more of a viper trait or a rattlesnake trait, which a rattlesnake is technically a viper. I if I remember right, but nope, they have round pupils just like you and me and my dog. But their most characteristic trait is their trademark hood, which are two scaly flaps that can flare out from either side of their neck, making them one of the most intimidating snakes out there, and that's by design. But I did say
iconic.
It is iconic. It is like snake.txt.
I forgot to say that this was suggested by Calvin.
Nice.
Who just wanted a snake, and I asked him what kind, and he said, I don't know, King Cobra. The most iconic snake.
Yeah, the snake. You know what I'm talking about. The only one that matters. What is this ball python? What's this corn snake? That's not a snake. You gotta give me the one with the flaps.
Yeah, we've done a snake. He's like, just give me a snake, and we've done a snake. What kind of snake do you want? King Cobra. Oh, I don't think we've done a King Cobra. Let's do a King Cobra. We did talk about King Cobra when we talked about the mongoose.
Yes. I thought you were talking about...
Which is the world's best measure up.
He wanted a snake. Like to
No.
own a
He
snake.
wanted us to do it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking to Calvin, and he's like, "I would like a snake," and then you're like, "What kind of snake?" And he says, "King Cobra," because it's the only snake he knows.
You may not have that. You may not.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think they're out of stock at the pet store. But
I mean, you could run it by your parents, but I don't think you're getting it.
right, yeah. But yeah, so this is, like I said, they're the largest venomous snake. But what is that? Like anaconda sized? What kind of sizes are we talking about here?
Good question. Welcome to the Blood Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show, the part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send an audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words measure up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have a new measure up intro this week, which means we're going to have a King Cobra.
It's a famine.
Introduce the show.
A famine of measure ups. And that's not, I'm not saying that to get the people who have, the listeners that have put the team on their back to do it again. Although we would love to hear measure ups from you always, but this is a call out to everyone who has not sent in a measure up. Let's hear your voice. We'll put it on the show. You want to hear it on the show?
Yeah. I don't know about percentages and usually how it works, but the number of people that send in measure ups versus the number of people that listen seems low. I don't know. I know it's hard to get people to do something a little less passive than just listen.
Well, it's kind of it kind of takes that Perot 80-20 principle and just brings it to the extreme. It's not that 20% of the people are doing 80% of the heavy lifting. It's that 2% of the people are doing 98% of the heavy lifting.
Yeah. But without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show. Huh.
That was
hard
bad.
to hear. No. It's the sound you're hearing. It's the low sound. I at first I thought it was that's just background room noise. But there's a really low, we'll talk about this later. But there's this really low hissing sound. It's not the cat hiss you often hear in the movies. It's a low
I thought I was listening to traffic.
It does sound like that. Let's talk length. But by the way, we are in the
Age of empathy.
the age of empathy for measure up, which means we get to we think about what Carlos might want to learn about, since he has to do all of the math, on the fly math. So let's talk about length. 3.18 to 4 meters. Meters. I thought these were little guys. I thought they were just little,
it's the king.
highly venomous guys.
It's the
like
king.
Other snakes. 10 to 13 feet and a maximum recorded length of 5.8 meters or 19.2 feet. Nearly 20 feet of snake. And it's venomous.
Yeah. That's
Danger Noodle.
that would have been a good nickname.
That's not original.
Oh, is it not?
So, how many King Cobras go into the distance of the distance that the Bell P63 King Cobra could fly in an hour? It's top speed, essentially. How many cobras per hour can it fly? Yeah, here's a hint. The Bell P63 King Cobra was a fighter aircraft developed by the United States in 1942. It never saw World War II combat use by the U.S. Air Force because it had poor performance in high altitude. The engine was behind the cockpit because the designers put a 22 millimeter cannon in the nose Why does that sound small?
22 millimeters?
Yeah.
That's not the size of the cannon. That's the size of the round it fires.
The round. So it's just spraying out like small 22 millimeter.
22
Is that?
Considering that your typical pistol fires a 9 millimeter. That's like more than twice the size of a normal handgun caliber.
Okay, so when I'm thinking 22, like a 22, it's not 22 millimeter.
No,
it's
22 is
22 inches.
Yeah, it's 0.22 inches. No, this is 22
I always
millimeters.
forget that they mix their.
Yeah.
When it comes to guns, they mix
Yeah, that's something.
mix the
That's
unit.
something like 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Is a 22 millimeter.
So it's a big thing.
Yeah, it's very big. Not the biggest, but like when it comes spraying out of a machine gun, it's a big deal.
So anyway, the Soviet Union said, yeah, sure, we'll take those, even though they're not good at high altitudes. So we gave it to them, and they were fighting the Luftwaffe at the ideal altitude for this plane. So wasn't a problem.
Use what you can
So
get.
this one's had to do with guns and World War II.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they didn't have any supersonic aircraft in World War II, so I mean that's all I have to go on. I don't think it went more than like 700 miles an hour.
Well, it's also a plane that we dumped off on another country, on one of the allies. Didn't even use it.
It doesn't sound like it wasn't because it was particularly slow, though.
No, probably not, because it was slow.
Which is the...
But if it was if it was really fast but not good at high altitudes, we might use it anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, I just the reason why I mentioned World War II is because I just watched a documentary on kamikazes. So which has to do a lot with planes.
Different planes.
Believe it or not, different planes. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm gonna say 400 miles per hour, because that's like takeoffs. Well, no, that's significantly faster than like takeoff speed. So it's enough to get you in the air and keep you in the air. But it is nowhere near supersonic. So I'm just gonna go with that middle. In an hour, you said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 400 miles. My answer is...
Oh, we're going by the upper end of average, so that's the 13 feet, not the 20.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with 161,000 snakes, King Cobras per hour. Which
Final
would have been a
answer.
very cool way to talk about how fast planes went. Yes, that's it.
The correct answer is 169,000
Oh, that
cobras
is
per hour.
That is a nursing school victory.
The plane reached speeds of 421 miles per hour or 678 kilometers per hour.
That is a
Right on the money.
95%.
It is true. It is almost 100% true that you definitely do better when you have a frame of reference.
Well, not that I know anything about plane speeds. I just know how fast the speed of sound is, and I kind of have a general idea of how fast planes go when they take off, but then I just didn't. That was fun. I feel good about myself.
Let's talk
Is this going to
weight.
continue?
Yeah. Let's see. They're 13 pounds. That's thick. It's heavy for a snake.
Guys, they're 13 pounds?
Huh? Yeah.
I
So
have
it's
that they're
not going to be
22
as heavy
pounds.
as a... Huh?
I have that they're 20. I saw that they're 22 pounds.
I just typed in... I didn't see it directly on the wiki site, so I just typed
I did see
in,
it on the...
how heavy is a
site.
king cobra? 13 pounds.
Okay, well, we'll go with that.
It's probably around the average. But yeah, the 20-footers probably have a little bit more heft to them. And also, like, the same length of snake in a python is going to be a lot heavier. These guys tend to be thin, comparatively.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many cobras go into the weight of a hoplite shield?
There's our Punic War.
Yes.
Oh no, it's not, because hoplites are Greek.
Very good point. Here's a hint. The army of Carthage in the Punic Wars was trained similarly to Greek hoplites, including the Sacred Band of Carthage, which was the army's most elite unit, supplied by Carthage's wealthiest families. So they had similar equipment and training to hoplites, the Greek hoplites.
Yeah, they actually had a Spartan come and train a Spartan commander train their troops, and then they tried to kill him when he was doing too good of a job. A hoplite shield, those are pretty big, if I remember, but a shield just can't be that heavy. Otherwise, it just doesn't make a very good shield, unless it's like something you would just set up and not carry with you. But hoplites, I'm pretty sure, carried their shield. Like, it's just it's a spear and shield setup, I think. I'm actually, to be honest, I'm thinking of the Magic card, which has a hoplite on it.
You're right.
The
what
red
you're describing sounds right.
Red and white hoplite from Magic the Gathering.
They had something called a heavy spear, which I kind of wanted to find the weight of, but couldn't.
I mean, these shields are probably made out of wood with maybe like a metal coating, possibly.
Metal bracers.
I'm going to say 15 pounds. That seems kind of heavy. I would say 10 pounds. Yeah.
That's a good question.
What?
Were they just painted wood, or did they have metal incorporated in?
I know that some shields had. I mean, I guess it depends on how you can fund your army. A cheap shield would just be wood, and then one that was was more expensive but more effective was a wooden shield that was coated in a thin layer of metal. What they weren't
wood
was
or stiff
all
leather.
metal.
Wood or stiff leather faced with bronze.
Yeah, so we're going to go with... Oh, wait. You said how many of these go into the weight of a hoplite shield? Unless you're going to flip it on its head and say, like, 0.7 went into the weight of a hoplite shield. I'm probably seriously underestimating the weight of one of these shields. So I am going to say... 1.5. 1.5 snakes.
Final answer?
Yeah, I'm going to say this is about a 20-pound shield. That any higher, I just can't, like, that seems like it would be impractical to use in battle. You just get too tired.
The correct answer is 1.3 cobras.
Wait, is
the
that...
shield was between 14 and 18 pounds. They were pretty much carrying a full cobra and then some on their arms in battle.
That is a nursing school victory, is an 86%.
Double win. When was the last time you got a double win?
I can't even remember. It was in the before times.
Well, that's all I got for that. Double victory. Take a victory lap.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Put it in the books. One day maybe we'll get famous enough that people will actually keep a record on a website somewhere.
Yeah, but long before then we'll get measure ups every week. So
do you have any fast facts before we get into the major facts?
I do. So the King Cobra lives in... There are cobras all over the African and Asian continents, but the King Cobra lives in Southeast Asia, from East India all the way down to Malaysia and all the countries in between. It likes the jungle or rainforest areas on the islands, and
The Rainforest Cafe.
And it definitely loves the Rainforest Cafe, especially when the lights go down and the thunder starts to roll and all the gorillas hoot. It makes the food taste better. It is an apex predator. Mainly eats other snakes and lizards, so that's why it's fun to imagine this as the snake that Moses' staff turned into. And obviously watching The Prince of Egypt, it turns into a cobra and eats the other snakes. But yeah, this thing eats other snakes whole. And it mainly eats venomous snakes like other cobras, kraits, and pit vipers. They make a nest out of dried leaves at the base of trees, and they will lay up to over 40 eggs, which will hatch in a little over 3 months. The little snakelings are just as venomous as their parents, or their venom is just as potent. And they can actually be a little bit more dangerous because they are nervous and aggressive compared to their more defensive adult forms. They live for about 20 years in the wild unless some superstitious Chinese shaman kills them and grinds it up into powder that gives you super strength as well as the ability to lick your own elbows. It uses its tongue to catch chemical scents and search for food. And this was an interesting thing. Most snakes have forked tongues, and the reason, which we have not talked about on this show yet, is because each end of the forked tongue collects its own chemical information in stereo. Together, they're in stereo. So it's like having binocular smidgen. It's they can triangulate where something is based on how much of the chemical one side of their tongue gets versus the other, which is really interesting. Hey, did you ever look into that trend back in like the mid 2000s where like kids were getting their tongues cut in half? Like
I know about it.
That was a thing that people did. Oh man, that makes
I don't know if it was like widespread or if it was just like a couple people on Ripley's Believe It or Not.
I don't think it was. It wasn't as rare as Ripley's Believe It or Not, but it also wasn't anywhere close to widespread. But it was like, I remember other like, because it was like mid 2000s, so when I was like 12, and other kids going like, "Wow, that's so cool" or something like that, and I'm like sweating just hearing about it. It's like that's such an uncomfortable thought. And
uncomfortable, like even a tongue piercing. It's like I don't want when something's wrong with like something in your mouth. Like I want. Have you ever had your teeth sealed?
Yes.
And then your bite is weird for a few days.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can't stop thinking about it.
You do get used to it though, and relatively quickly. So, from what I understand, like if you were to get a tongue piercing, like it would be super weird for maybe a few months, and then after that, you'd kind of forget it was there, or just play with it. It wouldn't really like I remember when I got my wedding ring, it felt weird because I've never been a ring wearer. And now I don't even feel it, and I play with it constantly, so I do know that it's there, but it's just like it's not a problem anymore. But I feel like it's a little bit different if someone took a pair of scissors and just snipped your tongue down the middle.
Yeah,
and they were talking about you can move them independently and stuff like that, and not worth it. Not an advantage in my opinion. Maybe like you could reach out your tongue and like pincer. like a piece of Captain Crunch and bring it into your mouth.
That would be fun.
That would be fun. You would have no one would want to be around you, but if you did that. But so yeah, I guess if it's worth it. There were also a lot of health complications. I think people were getting infections or like nerve damage or something like that, which is
no doubt
not surprising. Anyway, snakes that have naturally forked tongues use it to have stereo chemical receptors. They can also sense vibrations to track moving prey. And like I said, like most snakes, they swallow their prey whole, which they dislocate their jaw to swallow things that can even be bigger than their head. And I'll leave it at that. That's all I got. You have any major facts?
Okay, I'm calling this major fact Hood Habits, which sounds like a 1990s like rap album, like a Skee-Lo album or something.
Oh, I thought you were going to call this F Do Right No Can Defend. Because it's
That's
Cobra.
also good.
It's Cobra Kai.
For the most part, king cobras avoid conflict. You said that the adults are more defensive, especially with humans and large predators. They tend to remain placid and run away if they can. And by run, I mean slither. And they often can because they can slither up to 12 miles per hour.
That is scary.
Yeah, but don't worry. They're usually going away from you instead of towards you. They can become extremely aggressive, though, when they're defending a nest. And they may strike quickly and repeatedly without too much warning if they think that you're like stumbling too close to the brood. A brood of vipers. Otherwise, they'll reserve aggression for when they're cornered or abused or if you get in their face and annoy them. When they're startled, they can lift up to a third of their body off the ground, which you've probably seen if you've ever seen a depiction of a cobra ever. Lifting their body high up with their head high up off the ground. Which means if you've got like a 9-foot snake, there's like a 3-foot tall snake. Yeah. Well, I didn't really want to calculate a third of 13.
I'll do it right now.
I was like,
that's 4.3 feet.
Quite a
it's
feat.
Like up to my chest of snake.
Yeah. But this isn't just posturing. You know how like they say like in the movies you always see like right before a bear attacks they'll stand on their hind legs. But in reality, bears on their hind legs are curious and looking around. But this isn't just posturing. This is an attack position. People often misjudge what a safe distance is when a cobra is reared up. So like our 13-foot snake reared up to 14 and change. You think if I stand or four and change, if you stand a little bit more than 4 feet away from them, you're clear of the strike. But actually, when they're in this position, even in this position, they can advance forward. They can slither forward and strike at the same time. So their range is a lot longer than you think it is when they're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
However, they typically give a few warnings before they strike, including their famous hood. The cobra hood, like you said, it flares out around the neck, but it isn't just skin folds. It's actually ribs. Their ribs move. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
To truly appreciate how it works, you have to kind of look at a diagram, Google Images. But there's like many strips of muscle and the rib bones intertwined so that the muscles pull the rib bones out. And it looks pretty interesting when you see a diagram. But in addition to the hood, they also have this really loud hiss that we just heard, and it's called a growling hiss because it's that low rumbling hiss. And they can hiss in like low frequencies that are close to like a low speaking human man. And they found that they have what is called tracheal diverticula, which act as resonating chambers for low frequency sounds. And guess what other snake has this? The rat snake.
Oh. No,
yeah, that's true. But the rat snake, which is their prey. So they both have these like low hissing sounds. I don't know, they get in hissing contests. If you ignore the warning signs, you might get bit. And they have an extremely dangerous neurotoxin. We are diverging from the the typical thing, which is like when we talk about spiders, like, oh, the brown recluse, oh, the black widow. Yes, it can be very dangerous, but most people survive bites. They're not as dangerous as they are made out to be, even though they can be dangerous. But a king cobra bite can kill you in as little as 30 minutes. So if you're like 30 minutes out from the hospital, you are in a fair amount of danger when you get bit.
That is not enough time. I was literally just talking to my father-in-law, who he travels around for his job, and he's done work in Tanzania and Egypt, and there are a lot of venomous snakes over there, like the black mamba and the death adders and stuff like that. And specifically in this like remote village in Egypt, it was not uncommon to see people missing hands and feet and stuff like that, because they'd get bit and they're not close to anything that could save them, and so they just hack off the appendages that got bit.
Wow.
And that's just kind of how you live your life in there, which is nuts. And then like the snakes in Tanzania are really aggressive, and he was talking to some farmer there they had 4 cows got too close to a tree where a black mamba was, and it just killed all 4 cows. And
wow,
it just bit them. So it's like it's too deadly. Scale it back.
That is pretty crazy. Like some small little critter in the bushes can like
kill 4
take
cows.
out 4 of your like livelihood,
We'll kill 4,000-pound animals.
Crazy.
In half an hour or whatever. And the King Cobra is no exception. It's just not quite as aggressive as something like the adders or whatever, but yeah. Just be ready to hack off your limbs if you get bit.
The good news is that king cobra bites are fairly uncommon. Guess what human vocation is the most likely to be bit by a king cobra?
Evil vizier or snake charmer?
Snake charmer is correct.
I knew it.
Yes, snake charmers are more the most common bit humans in Thailand. So imagine earning a living in the same way, and probably a similar living, that a like juggler or a busker would. How much money would you need to make a year to be a snake charmer? Like, I'm thinking professional athlete money.
Yeah, but like you got these jugglers that juggle chainsaws and stuff like that. I'm sure they're not making professional athlete money.
No. That's what I'm saying. It's like the people in India and in these different places that do snake charming.
But from what I read,
they're like street performers.
It doesn't seem like it's all that. It's dangerous, but it's not all that complicated.
No, but so like you're making it's so like if you get bit, you are in a big trouble. So first, if you don't want just street performer money, let me sweeten the deal. It's also illegal. And you may be arrested if someone catches you doing it. Does that make you want to do it more?
A little bit.
Because it is illegal in India to be a snake charmer. Because what a lot of these snake charmers will do, they'll like grab up all these snakes and they'll remove their fangs, they'll remove their venom glands. They will sometimes sew their mouths shut. And the snakes will become locally like endangered and threatened, because of all of people going through these snakes. But obviously, there's like a deep cultural connection to snake charming.
Sewing
or
their
else
mouth
no one would do it.
shut seems like the worst possible course of action.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need a new snake in a few weeks.
I think what is most typical for people that want to remove the threat is to remove the gland.
Yeah.
Because then you still have the teeth and it looks dangerous. But it's not dangerous. It's not that dangerous to humans. But yeah, when I was thinking about this, I was like, man, who would ever want to be a snake charmer? And then I looked it up and I was like, I assumed like, there's going to be this deep cultural connection with it. And there is, but it's also illegal, straight up illegal to do it.
In India, but is it illegal
Yes.
everywhere else?
No, but it's illegal in India, but people still do it. Like, there's families who's like, my father did it, my grandfather did it, his father did it, so I'm going to be a snake charmer.
Yeah, and it's not like those guys in I think it's Nepal where they free climb up to like this cliff to get honey from these
honey?
like ridiculous bees that and like half the time somebody dies or something like that. But you're getting a resource. This is not getting any sort of resource. You're just hoping that someone chucks a tuppence in your hat because you're flirting with death here. But if you've defanged it or removed the venom gland, then you're not really flirting with death. True.
I don't know how widespread that is. I don't know if there's like, we're the real snake charmers. Our snakes are fully intact and dangerous.
I'm sure there's some sort of there's sharks and jets gangs for the OG and then the posers. But like, also here's the other thing. If I'm a passerby, why would I want to get close enough to the snake charmer, to actually land my tuppence in his hat?
That's part of it. It seemed I saw videos of like the basket for the money is right next to the snake, next to the basket with the snake in it. So like it's kind of like a challenge. Like, I'll distract the snake when you put the dollar in. And so you get a little thrill from giving this snake charmer some cash.
Yeah, but you've just taken your clientele and just shaved that right down to the absolute like thrill seekers there that are willing to put their hand within feet of a living cobra.
Well, the ones I saw that were doing that, the snake's like the back of the snake's hood was to the basket for the money,
but and
it was locked into the stick or whatever.
We just talked about how easy it is to underestimate the range of a snake, and they're just so fast and they're so unpredictable. Man, there's no amount of money you could pay me to get that close to a cobra, let alone I'm in the position where I'm trying to pay somebody else.
I don't know if they all do this, but in the video I was watching, this guy was doing that.
Yeah, that's just those do not seem like strong business practices, but maybe they're strong. I don't know.
Maybe there's a lame basket and a cool basket. Like, put some money in the cool basket. I dare you.
Is the basket over there 20 feet away from all of this danger? That's for squares. It's even shaped like a square. But if you want to be one of the cool kids, you're going to put your hand in front of this snake. Oh yeah, that's I would rather just learn how to play Wonderwall on guitar and get a dog to sit there and look cute, and that's how I'd earn my busking money.
It's kind of like the savvy investors when the crypto thing was going crazy. we're like, don't invest in crypto, invest in the companies that are doing crypto. It's like, okay. So there's like a degree of separation, I guess. But anyway, you don't be the snake charmer, be the basket weaver that supplies the snake charmers.
Or be the snake provider or the anti-venom provider.
Yeah, oh, that's what you really want.
Yeah. You're just there in the wings with a blowgun, just ready to dart the snake charmer.
And when they remove the gland, then you call
PETA.
Fish and Wildlife. India's Fish and Wildlife. We got some snake charmers out here.
Yeah. It's not for me. To either I'll enjoy it from a distance.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh look, I can see kind of over there the vague shape of a man sitting there with a bong.
I'm way more interested watching a documentary video or tooling around a reptile terrarium and reading the facts.
Yeah.
Than I am watching a guy annoy a snake.
Annoy a 13-foot snake that can slither 12 miles an hour at you.
Well, that's another reason I didn't know that they were ever 13 to 20 feet because the snake charmers almost never use the 13-footers.
Yeah, or never use, like, it doesn't seem like they use king cobras very much either. But just cobras in general, because it's more of a spectacle to have this hooded, this quintessential archetype of a snake come rising out. You don't want to have a weak, like coral snake or something come slithering out. Everyone's gonna laugh at you.
There is something to it. There's a fascination with snake charming. It's in cartoons, many cartoons.
Yeah. It is interesting how much in the zeitgeist this fringe and frankly not very desirable profession is. I mean, something like sword swallowing or like just any like dangerous spectacle act. That's all in the cartoons and the movies and stuff like that.
That's true. We're just fascinated by spectacle. I wonder if there was a bunch of snake charmers that traveled with circuses in the United States, so that's why it's so it's in the culture.
It also represents something very foreign to the U.S. So it's also quintessentially like, look, we went to the Far East and brought back this man who can stare death in the face with his instrument.
Exotic intrigue. Yeah.
It's this very Victorian thing to do. But anyway, we're waxing here.
Yes.
You got anything else?
That's all I got.
That was the King Cobra. So, for you out there in podcast land, puff yourself up, flare your hood, and stand your ground like Tom Petty. I mean King Cobras here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, I just want to remind you that we now have a Patreon. Patrons can see full video episodes and get shoutouts on the show. But ultimately, it's a way for you to help us cover some costs and get even better. Still, reviews are the best way to help us grow. So if you haven't left one yet, we'd really love to hear from you. As always, thanks for listening and engaging.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
I forgot about that song. I was like, what the heck does Tom Petty have to do with this?
I have been singing that song while I was giving the kids a bath. I was just like, No, I won't back down.